May I humbly request that we may now take our seats. Your Excellency Dr. William Samoei Ruto, the President of the Republic of Kenya and Commander-in-Chief of the Kenya Defence Forces, Your Excellency Zainab Hawa Bangura, Director General of the United Nations Office, Ms. Hannah Wendot Cheptumo, Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Gender, Culture and the Arts, Dr. Lazar Asomo, Director, World Heritage Center, Louise Haxosen, Director, UNESCO Regional Office for Eastern Africa, Your Excellency Hiroshi Mitsura, Ambassador of Japan to Kenya, Ambassador Honorable Ababu Namwamba, Your Excellency Ambassadors, Ms. Umi Bashir, Principal Secretary, State Department of Culture, the Arts and Heritage, heritage experts, all distinguished guests. Your Excellencies, allow me at this point to invite the Principal Secretary, State Department of Culture and the Arts, Ms. Umi Bashir, to just make some introductory and welcoming remarks. Welcome.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Your Excellency. We are here today after a very deliberative week here at the United Nations. The Heritage Authenticity Conference is the backbone of the change that we need as a continent in terms of our heritage. I'd like to take this opportunity for UNON for hosting us this week, to also take an opportunity, Your Excellency, to thank the ambassadors, the diplomatic corps that have taken part in these deliberations this past week. We had more than 400 participants, researchers, scientists, and people who understand the importance of having a seat at the table when it comes to decision-making on matters heritage, cultural authenticity, and also research and science in terms of our sites. The change we need in the documentation on the operationalization of what is a heritage site, what is termed as a monument, what qualifies. Your Excellency, together with us today here is our Cabinet Secretary in charge of Gender, Culture, the Arts and Heritage, Madam Hannah Wendot, Madam Zainab Hawa, the DG for UNON. We also have Lazar from UNESCO, all the way from Paris, representing the Director General. Your Excellency, we have Japan, who have been a core pillar in ensuring this conference actually happens and takes place. We have Ms. Louise Haxosen, who is the Regional Director of UNESCO, here with us. Your Excellency, to make it very brief and short, we are more than excited and honored to have you here. I take this opportunity, Your Excellency, to welcome. I take an opportunity, Your Excellency, to welcome the Executive Director of the African World Heritage Fund, Dr. Albino Jopela, to make his brief remarks. And thereafter, we move with the program, which will be very short, Your Excellency. Thank you so much. And I'd like to thank all the diplomatic corps who have walked this journey with us. Thank you and God bless you.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, Honorable Dr. William Samoei Ruto, the Director of World Heritage Center at UNESCO, Mr. Lazar Asomo, all distinguished guests, Your Excellencies, ambassadors, heritage experts, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Board of Governors of the African World Heritage Fund, I wish to convey our sincere appreciation to the government of the Republic of Kenya for graciously hosting this significant gathering, the International Conference on Cultural Heritage in Africa, a dialogue on the concept of authenticity, in collaboration with UNESCO and the African World Heritage Fund. We express our sincere appreciation to the general support not only of the host, the government of Kenya, but also the government of Japan, France, the 54 African state parties to the convention, the advisory bodies, and over 400 heritage experts, community leaders, academia, who have gathered in this very robust conference. We're especially also thankful to the partners of the African World Heritage Fund, who have continuously contributed to the success of our mission in assisting African state parties to implement the convention, namely the government of Norway, United Arab Emirates, Azerbaijan, Saudi Arabia, Rwanda, and Uganda, and South Africa. As we bring this profound gathering to a close, I stand before you filled with gratitude and renewed conviction. Over the past days, we have not only shared knowledge, we have reclaimed our voices and our right to redefine what truly constitutes authenticity in the African context. So we leave this conference not with final answers, but with a call to action: the Nairobi outcome on heritage authenticity. It is indeed a call to all state parties to the Heritage Convention to ensure the inclusion of these redefined ways of articulating matters of authenticity in the heritage context, not only within heritage frameworks, but also ensuring the reinforcement of capacity building and resources for this implementation. So the adoption of the Nairobi outcome on heritage authenticity, Excellencies, is not the end, but the beginning of a new chapter where Africa leads its own heritage journey towards a better representation of the continent. Because let me be clear, redefinition of authenticity, it will not on its own result in an increased number of sites on the World Heritage List. As an organization with almost 20 years of experience, having invested over 20 million United States dollars in capacity building and financing of heritage, and trained almost 2,000 African professionals, we can categorically say that the great results that we have seen in our journey, it actually lies on two elements: the capacity building that we strengthen in institutions and professionals, but also the sustainable financing of our heritage. So, ladies and gentlemen, we would like to express our extreme gratitude to all state parties that have supported the fund in its endeavor of not only helping to increase the representation of African heritage on the World Heritage List, but also the guidance that we have received over the years from many countries, including by the host country. We have been privileged last year to be led by the government of the Republic of Kenya through the permanent delegation at UNESCO to the World Heritage Committee under the leadership of Professor Peter Nguri, who then, under his leadership, coordinated the successful inscription of 5 sites to the World Heritage List, and also increased awareness on issues of World Heritage and resource mobilization. So, His Excellency, we are extremely grateful, not only for the continued support of the government of the Republic of Kenya that has contributed with $1 million in 2014 to the support of the operations of the fund, and we very much look forward to the continued support of our mission of improving the representation of World Heritage from Africa on the global list. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, Your Excellency, with your permission, allow me to invite the Ambassador for Japan to Kenya, His Excellency Hiroshi Matsura, to make his brief remarks. Let's welcome him with a clap. Welcome, Your Excellency.
Your Excellency President Ruto, Excellency Hannah Cheptumo CS Culture, Excellency Zainab Bangura DG UNON, Mr. Lazare Asomo, Director of the World Heritage Center, UNESCO, and Mr. Albino Jopela, my previous speaker, Executive Director of African World Heritage Fund, Honorable Senators, MPs, PSs, Ambassadors, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I first would like to express my deep appreciation to you who participated actively and thoughtfully in the conference. Thanks to your precious contribution, we have arrived at a new understanding on how the concept of authenticity can be broadened and deepened. In particular, the contribution from across Africa have powerfully illustrated how authenticity is expressed and sustained through living traditions, community values, and historical continuity. I earnestly welcome that the outcome document has affirmed this pluralistic and community-centered understanding of authenticity of heritage. And I hope that this new understanding will lead to enhanced and improved protection of cultural heritage worldwide. In practice, I repeat and emphasize, in practice. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a major and arguably the first major bilateral collaboration by Kenya and Japan to take leadership in the area of culture to assist multilateral endeavors. Through this exercise, we have reached a new qualitative stage in our partnership, and it points to the relations' further maturity. The 2025 Osaka Expo was opened last month and will continue till October. One of the foci of the Expo is to enrich the human lives through culture. Japan and Kenya, and Japan and Africa should take this chance of Osaka to work together to give pleasure, high spirit, courage, and consolation to other people globally through the power of culture. We will also have TICAD 9 this August in Japan. It will be another opportunity for Japan and Kenya and Japan and Africa to find new ways to contribute to the world through cultural cooperation. That will be very meaningful for us and for the world. Ladies and gentlemen, I conclude by expressing my sincere gratitude to the government of Kenya for its visionary leadership under the strong commitment and prominent guidance of President Ruto and CS Cheptumo, together with the excellent organizing work by the UNESCO World Heritage Center and also the UNESCO Nairobi office. Thank you very much.
Next, to make his remarks, allow me to now call on the Director of the World Heritage Center, UNESCO, Dr. Lazar Asomo, to make his remarks. Well, let's welcome him with a clap.
Your Excellency, President of the Republic of Kenya, Honorable Dr. William Samoei Ruto, the Cabinet Secretary for Gender, Cultures, the Arts and Heritage of Kenya, and the Secretary General, Mrs. Zainab Hawa Bangura, the representative of the Government of Japan, Ambassador Matsura, the Executive Director of the African World Heritage Fund, Excellencies, Ambassadors and permanent delegates to UNESCO who are in the room, the ambassadors and diplomatic community in the Republic of Kenya, the ambassador and permanent delegate of Kenya to UNESCO, Professor Peter Ngure, the Principal Secretary, Culture, the Arts and Heritage, all protocol observed. On behalf of the Director General of UNESCO, Mrs. Audrey Azoulay, I would like to start by expressing UNESCO's deep gratitude to our host, the President of the Republic of Kenya, who is welcoming the African continent to dialogue on the protection of its outstanding heritage. And this demonstrates the excellent cooperation between Kenya and UNESCO, and in particular through our regional office headed by Mrs. Louise Hexthausen. In the city of cool water, which name comes from the Maasai, Kenya has welcomed Africa and the rest of the world to dialogue on how the continent can strengthen its presence on the UNESCO World Heritage List of the most exceptional and outstanding cultural and natural sites of our planet. With this profound dialogue that has taken place this week, a new shift has been initiated and a new horizon for the promotion of an understanding of the significance and the use of Africa's heritage for better consideration by the world community has opened up. Therefore, this long-awaited international conference is not going to close today. This historic day, in your presence, Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, marks a turning point for all professionals, experts, community leaders, and decision makers who, like us at UNESCO, are convinced that the heritage of the continent deserves a better international recognition. This international conference follows a similar initiative 25 years ago in Zimbabwe, where Africa voiced for the first time that when reading the concept of authenticity, it is not a technical checklist when evaluating nomination candidates coming from Africa, but a lived and continued reality of people and communities. This week, the whole world has again listened to this call for what unites us all, UNESCO World Heritage. We are grateful to the government of Kenya for hosting us with such warmth and purpose. We thank the governments of Japan and France, the African World Heritage Fund, and our gratitude also extend, in particular, Mr. President, to the conference steering and scientific committees, respectively chaired by His Excellency, the Ambassador Peter Ngure, and I'd like to thank him particularly for his leadership and the excellent relation that Kenya has been having with UNESCO, and for his leadership as a representative of Kenya to the World Heritage Committee. I also would like to thank the chair of the Scientific Committee, Professor George Abungu, a recognized world expert, and I'd like to thank him and ask him to stand for his stewardship that has brought us together here. Thank you. For this international conference, and following 3 days of discussion, Mr. President, and deliberation, the final message is clear. When assessing candidatures to the UNESCO World Heritage List, the evaluation of the authenticity of African sites should integrate also intangible, associative, spiritual, and functional attributes to enable Africa, its communities, to continue protecting and using their site as they have been doing for generations. While upholding the universality of the convention, another message from this conference reiterates that shared values of humanity are diverse by nature, and this diversity must be celebrated, not ignored. Indeed, this new approach requires that we integrate into the reflection ways in which the heritage is internalized and the perennial relationships between the physical and non-physical environment that weave the identity of communities and individuals who created them. Mr. President, this conference has also highlighted UNESCO's work to prioritize Africa across its mandates, including culture, to ensure greater recognition and protection of Africa's cultural heritage as a top priority defined by the Director General Audrey Azoulay. Since then, together with our partners, the African World Heritage Fund, the advisory bodies to the World Heritage Convention, ICOMOS, ICROM, and IUCN, since 2018, 18 new sites have been inscribed on the UNESCO World Heritage List from the African continent, including 17 in the sub-Saharan region. And in 2023, the milestone of 100 sites was reached and surpassed thereafter, with 5 more sites inscribed last year. UNESCO also supported the continent's member states in training local experts, improving heritage legislation and regulation, and preparing nomination candidatures for more new properties to be inscribed on the World Heritage List in the years to come. We have also addressed the other representation of African World Heritage sites on the list of World Heritage in danger through the joint mobilization of local experts, national authorities, and resulting in several World Heritage sites in Africa removed from this list, and these success stories serving as examples to the world. If World Heritage is what we leave behind for future generations, we must also train the next generation of heritage custodians and guardians to protect it. UNESCO is committed to developing and supporting professional opportunities in the field of heritage for young African heritage professionals. This has been evident through UNESCO's mentorship program for African heritage professionals. Hence, Mr. President, the Nairobi conference is not just a space for critical evaluation of our current practices on world heritage. It was a platform for homegrown proposals, intellectual and cultural affirmation. Your Excellency, Mr. President, the Nairobi outcome on heritage authenticity should be considered as the legacy of our time together for the Africa we want. For that, the concept of authenticity for World Heritage must be recognized as plural. It should embrace the intangible dynamics, taking into consideration oral traditions, belief systems, knowledge practices, and living cultural expressions. And the central role of communities, not only as stakeholders, but as knowledge holders, custodians, and legitimate caretakers, must not be underestimated. Traditional knowledge systems, community narratives, and spiritual associations must also nourish the understanding of this concept. And UNESCO commits today to amplifying the message from this conference at the upcoming World Heritage Committee meeting in July in Paris, for it to consider the voices and values articulated here in this land of the origin of the humanity, to nourish policies and practices of the work of the World Heritage Committee. Your Excellency, Mr. President, the spirit of the Nairobi conference echoes the words of a Senegalese philosopher, Souleymane Bachir Diagne. He says, to give universality meaning is to allow it to emerge from the interplay of all cultures, from the conversation among them. That is what we have done here. That is what we will continue to do. That is why Africa and UNESCO need your support, Your Excellency, Mr. President. Let us leave Nairobi with our minds sharpened, our networks stronger, and our conviction unwavering. Asante sana. Thank you very much.
And next, Your Excellency, to make her remarks, allow me to invite the Cabinet Secretary for Gender, Culture and the Arts and Heritage, Ms. Hannah Cheptumo, to speak and in turn invite His Excellency the President. Why don't we welcome her with a warm, warm clap? Karibu sana Waziri. Keep clapping until she gets here, just to encourage her. Keep clapping. There you go. Karibu sana Waziri.
Good morning, everyone. Your Excellency, Honorable Dr. William Samoei Ruto, the President of the Republic of Kenya, Your Excellency Zainab Hawa Bangura, the Director General of the United Nations Office in Nairobi, Mr. Lazare Enodu Osome, Director, World Heritage, representing the UNESCO Director General, distinguished members of the diplomatic community, representatives from UNESCO bodies, scholars and heritage experts, community representatives, civil society concerned with World Heritage, international partners, distinguished guests, good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, I am delighted to join you this morning as we close out a very engaging week. I'm grateful for all the hard work that has been made during this international conference. The Heritage and Authenticity in Africa Conference was a key turning point for the African heritage. It shall go down in the annals of history that the turning point happened on the Kenyan soil, the cradle of humankind. I'm therefore very proud that the African continent highly esteemed Kenya with this task of hosting the critical conference. Your Excellencies, the experts gathered here got a very good opportunity to discuss issues to do with safeguarding the heritage, African cultural identity, and debated the subjects that connect us. It is therefore our collective responsibility to ensure that our rich African cultural heritage is passed to the next generations. The Ministry of Gender, Arts, Culture and Heritage will pursue the issues discussed and deliberated and to actively participate in heritage preservation efforts. Your Excellency, this room holds individuals with untold knowledge on what we need in Africa to leverage heritage for sustainable development. It is my earnest appeal that this debate should not end here. Let us pursue it and ensure that the world pauses and listens to the African perspectives on heritage. Let us carry forward the discussions and commitments made here during the three-day conference in order to create a future where heritage is celebrated, respected, and valued. As I come to the end, allow me to recognize the work that has been done by the committees, the National Committee that has been sitting to ensure that this conference is successful. Let us also appreciate the contribution that has been made by the government of Kenya by contributing $150,000 to this conference. I would like also to thank the National Museums of Kenya for the good work that they have done. Thank you very much. I would like also to recognize the work that has been contributed by the UN, and especially let me thank Ababu Namwamba for their contribution. Thank you very much. At this juncture, I thank you all again for your attendance and support of the conference. With these few remarks, it is now my honor and pleasure to invite Your Excellency to address us. Let us all be upstanding to receive our President.
Thank you very much. Please, let's take our seats. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the Director General of World Heritage Center, UNESCO, my sister, Zainab Hawa Bangura, Director General of the United Nations Office in Nairobi, members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished guests, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. As I listened to the presentations that have been made here, it reminded me of my first year at the university, when we attended a course at the Nairobi National Museum. Mary, my classmate, who is currently the Director General of the National Museums of Kenya, was with me. She's right there. And yes. And that is why it's my pleasure and honor to welcome all of you to Kenya, the cradle of humankind. It is not by chance or accident, ladies and gentlemen, that Kenya is globally recognized as the home of human origins, a distinction rooted in remarkable fossil discoveries of early humans found right here in Kenya. In December last year, we marked 40 years since the discovery of the Turkana boy, the most complete early human ancestor ever recovered, 1.6 million years old. This fossil, housed at the National Museums of Kenya just a few kilometers from this United Nations complex, underscores Kenya's status as a global center of human history. Kenya also stands proud as the custodian of 8 sites inscribed on the prestigious UNESCO World Heritage Site list. I am especially pleased to note that the Gigiri National Monument became the latest addition following its inscription last year. Alongside Gedi, we have the sacred Kenya and Kaya Mijikenda Forests, Lamu Old Town, Fort Jesus, Thimlich Ohinga Archaeological Site, the Kenya Lake System in the Great Rift Valley, Lake Turkana National Park, and the Mount Kenya National Park and Natural Forest. Together, these extraordinary sites embody Kenya's invaluable contribution to humanity's shared heritage. This conference marks the culmination of a journey that began in 1972 with the adoption of the Convention concerning the protection of the world cultural and natural heritage. Our presence here reaffirms our shared commitment to identify, protecting, conserving, and passing on our cultural and natural heritage to future generations. This distinguished gathering has drawn global attention, bringing together heritage experts, practitioners, diplomats, policymakers, scholars, and community leaders to exchange research, experiences, and insights. I'm informed that the chair of the Kaya Council of Elders is in our midst. It has served as a dynamic platform for deep reflection in the many dimensions of heritage and authenticity and their implications for implementation and future of global normative frameworks such as the World Heritage Convention, particularly within the African context. Ladies and gentlemen, the conceptual, intellectual, and practical foundation of this conference has been shaped by key instruments of the World's Heritage Convention, including the Venice Charter in 1964, the 1976 Nairobi Recommendations on historic areas, the Nara Document on Authenticity that happened in 1994, and the Nara Plus 20 recommendations. This conference also is a successful culmination of historic meetings on the African continent that have advanced the development of African culture and natural heritage and informed the evolving interpretation of one very important thing: authenticity. This includes the experts meeting on African cultural landscape in Tiwi in Kenya in 1997, the Great Zimbabwe experts meeting on authenticity and integrity in an African context in the year 2000, the 2003 ICOMOS General Assembly and Symposium. Others include the Charter for African Cultural Renaissance adopted in Sudan in 2006, and the Africa Union's Agenda 2063, the Africa We Want, launched in Addis Ababa in 2015. Ladies and gentlemen, Africa's cultural and heritage and natural heritage and its listed properties under the World Heritage Convention are truly breathtaking and extraordinary. They range from Kenya's historic town and archaeological site of Gedi to Angola's Mbanza Gongo, the royal court of Tiabele in Burkina Faso, the rock-hewn churches of Lalibela in Ethiopia. Other notable sites include the Pleistocene occupation sites of South Africa, the island of Gorée in Senegal, the Medina Otuan in Morocco, and the Mosi Tunya Victoria Falls of Zambia and Zimbabwe border. Yet, current heritage management approaches often fail to align with African cultural contexts, revealing a disconnect between international frameworks and local realities. Although Africa is home to 147 World Heritage elements representing just 12% of the global total, it also has the highest number of sites listed as World Heritage in danger. These disparities expose deep-rooted systemic and conceptual inequities shaped by long-standing imbalances in how heritage is defined, whose stories are told, and which cultural values are deemed globally significant. At the heart of this challenge is the interpretation and application of the concepts of authenticity and integrity, core criteria for World Heritage inscription. Historically, developed in academic traditions outside Africa, these concepts, as codified in documents such as the 1964 Venice Charter and the 1994 Nara Document, tend to prioritize material continuity and original form. Ladies and gentlemen, therein lies the problem. The assumptions often fail to reflect Africa's dynamic, spiritually infused, and living cultural landscapes. I say it is the reason why we have a small fraction of heritage sites in our continent. Excellencies, the time has come to revisit and reimagine these concepts, to strengthen their meaning and to deepen and diversify them. We must ground them in Africa's philosophical, spiritual, and cultural realities. These perspectives are consistent with the principles of the Nara Document on Authenticity, which affirms that judgments of authenticity must reflect cultural context. As emphasized through the 2025 Nairobi conference, African heritage is plural, it's dynamic, and community-centered. In fact, its authenticity is derived from both the tangible and intangible, the movable and immovable, within places of cultural continuity, and with community custodianship at its heart. Ladies and gentlemen, this call, this conversation did not begin today. But today, we have achieved what those who came before us envisioned. We must remain dedicated and focused to pursue this path for the continent, for our heritage, for our culture, and for our contribution to the implementation of the World Heritage Convention that we are a party. Today, we launch the conference outcome document, and I congratulate each and every one of you for your dedication, your scholarship, and your visionary contribution. The outcome document reflects the depth of African perspectives and sets a forward-looking agenda for enriching the global understanding of authenticity of heritage. You will discover that we have living sites that, in my opinion, would form part of World Heritage. For example, in Hell's Gate, a few kilometers from here, maybe 70 kilometers from here, we have something that's inscribed as a baboon parliament, where every so often baboons come together around a site and they look like they are having a conversation. I don't know where we would place that or maybe I'll give you another example. Down at the coast of Kenya, we have a site where lions swim. It's not very natural, it's not very often. So when we say that these are living sites that are not necessarily monuments, and we think they should qualify to be heritage sites, that is why this conference is important, that we expand the meaning, we diversify authenticity to the level that captures the spiritual aspects of our continent. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, as we bring this landmark 4-day international conference on cultural heritage and authenticity in Africa to a close, I extend my very sincere gratitude to the governments of Japan and France, as well as the Africa World Heritage Fund, for their generous support. I'm honored to officially receive the Nairobi Outcome Document on Heritage Authenticity. May it guide us towards a more just, a more inclusive, and a more representative global heritage future. I thank you.
A warm round of applause for His Excellency. On that, and we are almost at the end of this particular session. May we take our seats briefly, please? Allow me, Your Excellency, to now invite the Chair, Ambassador Professor Peter Ngure, and the CS Culture, who will now present to you the recommendation document on Nairobi's outcome on heritage authenticity. And we may do that on stage, so you may just progress from the left there. Come and present it to His Excellency, the President, and the photographers. You can get that as a photo op. And like we like to do in Kenya, let's clap as they're coming, as a sign that this is something that we all agree with. So the document is presented by Ambassador Professor Peter Ngure, who is the chair of the scientific committee to together with the CS culture. Thank you. Your Excellency, that brings us to the end of this particular session.